Google search on a spiral, or what they call a Fibonacci spiral, even though he didn't invent it, we find it's based on a pattern, and we see it in many places in nature. Right up here, it's kind of handy. You can see it's in flowers and spiral shells and plants and trees. Kind of allows you to go through it. But if we take a quick look, we can see it in the eye of a storm, in a sunflower. We could see it in various places. So we want to talk about why. What's the purpose or the benefit of things being in a spiral, as well as the symbolism? How can we look at the spiral as a symbol for balance and nurturing and doing something that's good for whatever is growing? So as you see here, we see it in our hand, and the proportions, they all have the same Fibonacci number. That number, when we divide it backwards, we get a ratio, 1.618. They call that phi, P-H-I, or the golden ratio. So that is the number behind the spiral and the golden rectangle, and even the equation x squared minus x minus 1. You see it in the perpendicular bisector, or the vesica Pisces. You see it in the five-sided star. You even have the Hebrew tradition that had a five-sided star as a symbol for the creator of God, which contains that proportion as well, the number phi. You see it in the face in waves, and part of it is it's giving it balance, momentum, efficiency, and allowing it to do something that's balanced and good for it to grow or to maintain progress. And I love seeing it in the garden. You see it in the roses. They'll always have a Fibonacci number of petals. In sunflowers, pineapples, pine cones. And so why do we have that in particular for plants? We could talk about how it balances out the ability to get energy, to get sunshine. The leaves are spread out. So we see it from the biggest things like the galaxy or the eye of the storm, as well as the smaller things like an ear or an embryo. We tend to have circles and spirals in many different places. So this is a nice, easy graphic of what the spiral looks like in the golden rectangle. The places we have it about in our body, and a reminder of the animals we sort of looked at for a quick second. Like the horn of a goat, a seahorse's tail, a shell, or an ocean wave. So, this is how we make it. I have a video I'll post on that, on how to actually construct it. But again, let's talk about what's the purpose behind it, as well as the symbolism. I tend to talk about it as a good symbol for leadership and balance. Because just like these leaves are balanced out, allowing sunshine to be distributed to everyone, allowing energy to be shared, that's what a good leader does, is they make others better and they balance things out, so that only one leaf or a set of leaves don't get all the sunshine, so that everything else withers. We understand the spiral and the Fibonacci spiral. We could Google that and learn the math behind it. What you do is you create a pattern. You add 0 and 1, and you get 1, and you're going to keep adding the previous 2. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, and you keep adding the previous 2, and you eventually keep getting an infinite number of possibilities. If we graph this, we are going to get a spiral. And using the same number pattern, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, the same numbers. If we continue that, we're creating, using quarters of a circle, arcs, we're creating the perfect spiral that we see in nature. So we're going to talk more about the symbolism of it, not the math behind it, but there's a video I made on how to create this using a compass. We want to talk about, well, what does the symbol mean, and what are the properties of the spiral? So why are these spirals all over the place? For practical reasons. So one thing to consider is that the spiral, I kind of think of it as a trinity. When I think of the trinity, I think of love, strength, and wisdom. And this is what I'm going to be getting at with the spiral. So first of all, it takes wisdom to make this spiral. It is a mathematical pattern. When we divide it, we get the golden ratio. When we keep doing the pattern and divide a further number by the one before it, for example, 13 divided by 8, you get the golden ratio. It's close to 1.61, I believe. And that's the mathematical number behind the spiral. It's 1.61. There's other ways we could look at it, like when you cut a certain section and add it together, it's the same as another section. Again, there are videos on the golden ratio and the Fibonacci spiral. It's terrible that we call it Fibonacci spiral. It's someone a few hundred years ago didn't invent it. They used it in Egypt and before, and it's been in nature. So if anything, it's the creator's spiral. What we learn in math is that all waves come from the circle. And in ancient symbolism, the circle was the symbol for the creator, some infinite creator, and it's also the creator of the geometric shapes. We use the compass to make all of the geometric shapes, and from a cathedral to a garden and a chariot and all these things we've invented up and even through computers, we use the same math and the same properties. Even getting into physics, you have energy traveling in a wave and sound going in a wave and color and light going through waves. So the symbolism we learned is that the circle is the creator. And what does its creation do? And I'm going to consider it a nurturing balance, and I'm going to explain to you why the spiral is a symbol of nurturing balance, which, you know, the first conqueror, the unifier of Egypt, was wearing a crown that had a spiral like that on it. And it was the goddess of war who not only had strength, but she also had the wisdom and also the compassion to unify the people when she conquered them. She didn't conquer and oppress them. So we're going to look at that even as a symbol for being a good leader, because the spiral, it has to do with nurturing balance and caring for people. It's really going to be a good symbol for leadership. And we could talk about how a particular flower is and the way it spirals, how it would be a good example of how not to be a dictator or how to be a good leader as opposed to a dictator. So there is math behind the golden ratio. There's a math pattern. And, you know, even some shapes I recently learned, if you take a regular pentagon and the sides were all equal, of course this one's not. If you divide the red side by any of the regular equal sides, so let me make it blue. If I divide the red by the blue, I'm going to get the golden ratio number. So even though we don't see the spiral, the mathematics of the spiral is in certain shapes, and we see it everywhere, including the human body. So one thing to keep in mind is that it takes the mathematical property and wisdom. The other thing is what it's doing. So why do we have all of these spirals all over the place? What are they doing? So in many ways, when we look at these spiral shapes in our DNA, the super tiny microscopic, all the way to the galaxy, we see the same spiral shape. One of the reasons is because it gives the ability for things to be strong, for things to adapt, things being efficient. It's one of the reasons your water will go down the drain in a spiral. It's building momentum and efficiency. And those things allow us the ability to grow and be the best you. So if we're creating a storm, right, we're going to create some momentum with the spiral shape. So why do we mix our coffee in a circular motion? And why is it when we flush water, it goes down the drain? Because if it didn't go in a spiral, it would blob up and make bubble noises. Bloop, bloop, bloop. The spiral is this pattern that creates a good pathway, and it creates efficiency. It creates momentum as it grabs the other molecules and says, hey, let's join together for this ride. So there are different ways you could look at why the spiral has that design. So we have balance and strength and efficiency and momentum. I guess one big one, one of the most important one, is balance. If you love something, you want it to be balanced. So when you love your kid, it might be tempting to just give them everything. But you really want to give them what's good for them and take away what's not good for them or an obstacle to their growth. Same with yourself, right? This temptation is to give ourselves everything we want. But really the right thing to do is give us what's good for us and take away what's not good for us, and it allows us to be the best you, be the best us we could be. So let's take a minute to look at a few pictures of the spiral. When you do a quick Google search of spirals, Fibonacci spirals in nature, you begin to see, many places, from the plants. I love walking down the street and seeing it, to the animals, to even a hurricane or the weather patterns, or the currents in the ocean. So we could see here over and over the same pattern. And so again, why does the shell have this spiral shape? Well, it gives it strength and the ability to grow and the ability to be an efficient, protective home for whatever's living inside of it. So again, we have balance, strength, efficiency, adaptability. So if something's in the way, there's a little bit of spring and you can kind of adapt. So it creates a lot of interesting properties of momentum and just things that are good for whatever's happening. Of course, to us, a good hurricane's not good, but for the water molecules, it's starting to create strength and momentum and some order to it. So we can see over and over and over again, going as far as the galaxy, we see the same geometric spiral patterns. But going even to the smaller, I mean, it's not necessarily a Fibonacci spiral, but we can get into DNA as well, which is spiraling. And again, it creates an ability for things to have strength and balance and adaptability and efficiency. So it's really good for you. So think of a seed. When you grow something, you have a seed, and that seed is kind of the instruction manual for what it's going to grow into and how it's going to grow. And what we want to do is help some tree, let's say it's a seed for a tree, we want the tree to grow in the best way possible, be the best you, we keep saying. So when we think about what is that? What is that to help someone grow in the way that's best for them? And in a lot of ways, it's what we can call love or nurturing balance. It's giving you what's good for you. So in a lot of ways, the spiral represents many, many things, but that's part of it, right? When you have a child and you love that child, you again are tempted to give it everything, but really you want to give what's good for it and take away what's not good for it, and stop doing things. Not just always make goals to do new things, but sometimes we have to let go and stop doing things. Then we want to educate that kid, give them the basic needs, right? If we had a child, and we want to educate them and give them as many opportunities as possible. We're trying to have them live the best life they can and be the best you, is one of the ways we say it. So in order to help raise that child and take care of it and give it what's good and take away what's bad, right, it does require wisdom. So a good parent does need wisdom. A good parent does need strength and balance and the adaptability. Right? And doing those things and giving that nurturing balance is the way that we'd love our child. So it's the same way in many ways that the spiral does these things. The spiral itself takes wisdom. It's a pattern. It creates balance and strength, adaptability, and efficiency. And it's allowing these things to grow and to move along in the best possible way for them. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at things. Really, another way we could look at it is just even looking at the idea of just one spirally shape. So let's take one of the garden shapes, and like this cactus, and talk about why does that, not only does it give it balance and strength and beauty and order to it, but why, for practical reasons, do these leaves want to be spaced out in the way that they're spaced out? So that's another aspect that goes along with this. How to be a balanced and nurturing leader. So the spiral could be a good symbol for leadership as well. If you have the sun, and the sun is shining down on the ground. Here's my sunshine. And we're going to grow a flower. Now, oops, I accidentally made my flower or my sunshine red. But that's okay. So let's pretend we have a flower with a blue leaf. Now what if I had a flower and here was the first leaf and all of the leaves behind it, underneath it? What would happen if they didn't spiral? They were just underneath each other. Well, when you think about it, by spiraling, each leaf is getting a little bit of sunshine. So it's creating an ability for things to be ordered and efficient. That's my terrible flower. But again, thinking of it as a leaf, what you want to do is you want the leaves, when we look down on it, let's say I'm facing downward, you want one leaf here, And then actually what we learn is it goes 137 degrees and does another leaf here, and then does that again. And we keep forming this leaf in a spiraling pattern, allowing each leaf to get a little bit of sunshine and a little bit of air and a little bit of a chance to be the best version of itself. So that's a great example for how to be a leader. You know, a leader who hogs all the sunshine, who takes all of the resources, let's say a dictator in a country, and they hog all the money and all the resources and everything good, what will start to happen? Well, what will happen to this plant if only the top ones get sunshine is all of the leaves underneath will begin to rot. And eventually the actual whole tree will rot, or the whole flower. So just like with dictators, over time they're always just like a bully, they're overthrown. You get someone stronger, or you get groups of people that are stronger, but every good leader should understand that you want to share things and have a balanced, well-rounded way of running things. If only a few get the sunshine, then everyone's going to die in the end anyway. So the dictator really has short term, yes, right? When we're controlling and we hog things for short term, we end up feeling, hey, I got something by being mean and hogging all the money. But over time, you might have everything, but everyone around you is going to get miserable and eventually going to overthrow you if you're a dictator. So just looking at it in some different ways, the spiral, it has a lot of interesting properties. But again, if you think of the Trinity, and those of you who are Catholic or Christian, you might think God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Well, those have a symbolism too, right? The Father is the strength and creator of everything. The Son is considered loving and kind, and God is love, they say. And then the Holy Spirit is what they considered wisdom. So in a lot of ways, we have a very similar Trinity here. It takes wisdom to create the spiral pattern. That pattern in and of itself is a way that nature is helping that living thing be the best version of itself and grow in a way that's good for it. In order to do that, you need to be wise, and you need wise people around you, and you need to listen in order to understand what's good for you. And then, sure enough, doing these things are going to create a nurturing balance, which again is letting us grow into our most potential, our best version of us. Just like the plants and the trees and the animals. You know, when we're balanced and we have everything going and everything feels like it's running smoothly, we're able to be our best and to achieve and do things and grow in ways we never imagined. So just taking a quick look again, you start to see over and over again these spiral patterns. And so maybe we can begin to understand that it's a nurturing and it's a way to help it grow in a way that's good for it. And so maybe that's why we like these patterns, because we like the clothings and paintings and things that have them, because they remind us of the order and the balance, and maybe subconsciously we're picking some of that up because we all need to sometimes get back on track and be more balanced. But that's my idea of the Fibonacci spiral, or the creator's spiral really, and some of the symbolism behind it. And again, to be a good leader and someone who's taking care of their people in a way that's good for everyone to be the most successful possible, we can kind of think of these same principles of being balanced, of sharing duties, responsibilities, sharing wealth, and together we start to swirl around and be awesome little universes of creativity and of life. So that is my long-winded explanation of the symbolism of